everybody. Today's podcast is going to be on the first five chapters of our book, Cognitive Development Infancy Through Adolescence. It's the second edition. This is for Child Development 350. My name is Genesis Acosta, and I will be your host today with our ghost audience. So, the first chapter is about memory. In child development, memory is all about how children can store, how they can recall, and how they can retain the information they are able to experience on the day to day basis. The development of memory is a lot based on how the caregivers are able to expose the children to routines, to games, and stuff that are able to make the children recall. And toddlers, it's they can recognize routines, they can recall simple events or sequences like brushing their teeth happens before bedtime. They're able to remind their caregivers if they happen to forget. They will remember that every time before bed they have to brush their teeth. Every time before bed they have to take a shower. And and babies, they're able to recognize faces. They're able to recognize this face is mom's face. This voice sounds like dad's voice. So memory definitely does start from the time they're in the womb. It's not something that it's new for children as soon as they are able to grow or as soon as they're exposed to certain environments. However, it is a topic that can be taught. It is a topic that can be trained and practiced. For example, creating routines. It's very important for children in schools and households to be able to create routines so they can practice um, their association with memory, with the things they have to do. It's fundamental for the learning, of course. They have to remember that 2 plus 2 is 4. They have to remember that every day their parents are going to pick them up from work. It's also a subject that they can develop in the long run. Of course, you're able to practice, you're able to get better at it by games. It's also important to remember that children are it's like our sponges. They're able to learn about a lot of things at the same time. For example, how many phone numbers can you remember?
Two.
Two. Maybe his memory is not as good as others. I can remember like four phone numbers, and it's not something that is wrong. It's something that it's practiced and it's something that it's learned. For chapter two, I'm gonna be talking to you about the pre-operational stage. It's a stage is the second stage in Piaget's theory of cognitive development. It typically occurs around the age of 2 and 7. In this stage, children are able to recognize and develop symbolic thinking. It means that they start to use words, they start to use images, symbols to represent objects and experiences. The way that they think is not logical, or it may not be fully developed, but at this time their stage is egocentric. Kids are very egocentric, and it's not that they're selfish. It's although they often are. Children are very selfish, and it's not just about that. It's about that they're just not able to distinguish what other people see or what other people feel, what other people hear. An example, let's say 5-year-old Jason is on the phone with grandma, but he's also playing with a toy. He tells his grandma on the phone about the toy and how pretty it is, but grandma is asking what toy. So little Jason gets irritated, gets upset because grandma can't see it, because he thinks that grandma is able to see what he is seeing, even though grandma is on the phone. So, in this stage, children are just beginning to understand or they're going through that phase where everything is about them, in the sense of, if I can see it, others can see it. If I feel this way, others feel the same way. So children are very egocentric creatures. It's not wrong. It's just they have no idea that other people's feelings, or that other people's perspectives even exist. When it comes to chapter 3, we're going to talk about the learning theory. Learning theory is such a broad framework that explains how individuals, or how children, acquire and process and retain knowledge, and the way people behave. The theory focuses on learning through interactions with the environment. It's classical conditions. It's when we learn to connect two things together, right? So, for example, you have a dog, right? Rocky. If every time you ring a bell, you give Rocky a treat, every day every day he hears that bell, as long as he's being trained, as long as the practice is consistent, even though the bell is not being represented by any food or anything in specific, just the fact that you ring the bell is going to make Rocky think that he's gonna be getting a treat, even though even though the bell rings, but there's no food, he's still going to be expecting it. So a lot of scientists and just people who do research on these topics have tested how children and animals behave the same way in that sense. Is it a little bit weird? Yes. But it is very it's factual. It's if dogs are able to feel or are able to notice things the same way, is it's because of that, because of classical conditioning. When it comes to operant conditioning, it's about how rewards and punishments influence our actions. The reinforcement, if you do something good, you get a reward, right? At my school where I work at, when the kids do something good, or when they do something that it hasn't been told to do, but they do it anyways, they get this called a PBIS point. When they rack up as much points as they can, I believe it's at the end of the month, they bring a big box of toys, and they're able to buy the toys with the points that they earned by being good. So it's a reward to punishment kind of conditioning. For chapter 4, we're gonna talk about attention development. This is such an important topic when it comes to children, because throughout the years it has become so hard for them to be able to develop their attention spans. But the way that it develops is about how children's ability to focus and pay attention grows over time. So it's not about how they spent a little time watching TV or doing their homework, but how it develops in their overall time in school, their overall time in at home. So it's a key part of cognitive development, and it affects how children are able to learn, how they're able to sit through a lecture, or maybe not a lecture, a lesson, how they're able to remember and interact with the world overall. Some factors that affect attention development, it could be age, it could be the environment, it could be the parents' interaction, the distractions they have, or even individual differences. There's a lot of students who are diagnosed with ADHD. Are you familiar with that? So it's basically their attention spans just shorter. They're not able to stay still. They need to get moving. So when it comes to teaching in the classroom, teachers should be able to accommodate to these kind of individuality differences of children and are able to adhere to those needs, because there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we are living in a world with a lot of differences, and some engaging activities that teachers could incorporate to help improve attention development is what puzzles, games, memory games, that's very important, or categorizing games, or even story times. It helps a lot with their attention because it keeps them engaged. So that's a big part of how a teacher should manage their classroom, keeping the children engaged so they could pay attention to it, teach something or teach it in a way that the kids, the toddlers, the infants are interested in. There was a big trend about an Australian show. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about. I think it's like two dog sisters. Do you know what it was called?
No.
I think it's called Bluey. And at one point, it got very popular with my elementary schools. So we started implementing it in how we explain word problems. And it's important to incorporate things that children are interested in to keep their attention and to keep them engaged. When it comes to chapter 5, categorization is mostly how children learn to put things into groups, but based on what they have in common, right? So we know that different water bottle brands are essentially the same thing. The only difference is again the brand, but they're all in the same category. What are some water water brands? Well, we have Kirkland, the ones from Costco. There is Fiji water,
Dasani.
Dasani. So there's a lot of brands, but they all fall under the same category, which is water, right? So children are able to put things into groups based on how and what they have in common. This helps kids make sense of the world. It's a way they're able to understand how the world works. They're able to understand that just because it looks different, it may not mean it's a completely different thing. We have vehicles at that age where um, children learn what vehicles are. They're also able to put them in categories. Some vehicles fly, others go underwater, others go on land. So, categorizing helps kids learn faster. Instead of learning about each new object separately, kids can group similar things together, like knowing that dogs, that cats, and birds, they look different. They're different sizes, but they're all animals at the end of the day. It also helps children solve problems. It helps them it helps kids know which go together and how they can make better choices. For example, knowing that cups and plates are for eating helps them find what they need for the table. If you're able to know what you need for school, it helps them learn how to get ready for school by themselves. So, categorizing helps not just their development, but their individuality and how they're able to become their own person at the end of the day. Children categorize different things at different ages. When they're babies, they start to notice simple colors like shapes, like like I said, like colors. They might think of round objects like what a ball and an orange, like the same thing because they're both circular, they're both sphere. Although they're completely different things, they're able to know that they look similar. In toddlers, they're able to put things together like toy cars and trucks go together, um, because they're things that move, things that go. They may also notice things like food or clothes, and they're able to put those things in their mind and they're able to develop that connection that comes with getting ready, with putting their toys away. um, there's a lot of activities that help kids practice categorizing. There's sorting things. There's a lot of toys that go for very expensive, but it helps them understand that they are, at the end of the day, somehow similar. With this being said, it's parenting, it's not a linear structure. Parenting is 100% something that is very it's very structured. It needs a lot of effort. It needs a lot of maintenance when it comes to growth, when it comes to development. And as parents and as educators, you need to understand that a lot of kids have different needs. Every kid has a different need and has a different connection to what they learn and how they learn. So it's important to never go to a lesson plan based on what you think a child knows, but with a very open mind of how the environment in what each child grew up in and what they're constantly being exposed to affects their environment overall. So thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope everybody learned something new today, and we are out.